A barely literate peasant destroyed an empire, not with armies, with psychology. Rasputin controlled the most powerful woman in the world, Tsarina Alexandra, through strategic helplessness that made her dependent on him. He made himself irreplaceable, then watched as the Russian Empire collapsed because no one could remove him without her consent. 7 manipulation techniques that work today exactly as they worked in 1916. By the end of this video, you'll recognize these patterns in your own life and understand why some people are impossible to remove from power. Subscribe for manipulation tactics others won't discuss. New Dark Psychology Weekly. Think about someone incompetent but somehow untouchable. Everyone sees the problem. No one can remove them. That's Rasputin's architecture. They've built dependency structures that make them more valuable broken than fixed. First technique, choosing the right target. Not the most powerful person, the most desperate one. Rasputin approached the Tsarina, not the Tsar, because Alexandra was powerful but terrified. Her son, the heir, was hemophiliac, bleeding disorder that could kill him. Doctors were useless. She was desperate. Desperate people don't evaluate rationally. They grasp at anything promising relief. Once committed, they can't afford to admit they were wrong. Any small improvement becomes proof the solution works. Any setback becomes, it would have been worse without the solution. Alexandra's son would sometimes stop bleeding after Rasputin prayed. Therefore, Rasputin was working. Unfalsifiable, self-reinforcing. Everyone told Alexandra that Rasputin was dangerous, corrupt, destroying the empire. She didn't care. He was keeping her son alive. Desperation-based manipulation is immune to logic, evidence, or outside intervention. But targeting desperation just gets you in the door. Maintaining control requires making yourself the only solution. Rasputin did this through intermittent reinforcement. Rasputin didn't heal Alexei every time. Sometimes his prayers worked, sometimes they didn't. Random pattern. This is the most powerful reinforcement schedule in psychology. Intermittent reinforcement creates stronger addiction than consistent reinforcement. Slot machines use this. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Can't predict, so you keep pulling the lever. Alexandra kept bringing Rasputin back because sometimes it worked. She couldn't risk removing him. If Rasputin claimed 100% success, one failure destroys credibility. But intermittent success is unfalsifiable. When it works, proof. When it doesn't, would have been worse, divine will, needed more prayer. Sometimes Rasputin refused to see Alexei when called, created artificial scarcity, made Alexandra begin. Unpredictable presentation, but consistent in being irreplaceable. This kept Alexandra off balance, always grateful when he showed up at all. Alexandra wasn't rationally employing Rasputin. She was addicted to the possibility he might save her son. That's why warnings failed. They weren't arguing with her logic. They were arguing with her addiction. Rasputin never explained how his healing worked, never taught anyone his methods, never demystified his power, because Mystique is power. The less people understand how you do something, the more irreplaceable you become. I have holy power you can't understand. Irreplaceable, unreplicable, exclusive. Rasputin gave contradictory answers about his healing. Sometimes divine power, sometimes peasant wisdom, sometimes mystical connection. This prevented people from pinning down what he actually did. Can't understand it, can't replace it, can't evaluate it. He used his peasant background strategically. I'm not educated. I just know things educated people can't understand. This framed all criticism as intellectuals unable to grasp peasant wisdom. Doctors saying he's a fraud. Of course, they can't do what he does. He positioned all critics as having vested interest in discrediting him, made skepticism look like bias. Rasputin occasionally performed public miracles, small ambiguous events interpreted as supernatural. Each ambiguous success reinforced Mystique. Each failure explained away. Alexandra witnessed just enough to believe. That's all manipulation requires. Not proof, just enough to justify continued belief. Rasputin alternated between intense attention and cruel withdrawal, strategically. When Alexandra was anxious about Alexei, Rasputin would show up, offer comfort, pray intensely, stay by the bedside. When she felt secure, he'd disappear. Ignore summons, be unavailable, let her panic in his absence. This created emotional dependency through intermittent emotional availability. Humans bond most strongly to those who provide relief from pain, especially pain created by their absence. Rasputin's withdrawal created anxiety. His return created relief. The relief bonded Alexandra to him more than consistent presence ever could. Sometimes Rasputin was deliberately cruel, mocking her faith, criticizing her parenting, implying her anxiety made Alexei worse. After cruelty, he'd be kind again. The contrast made the comfort more powerful, and it made Alexandra blame herself. I upset him. I need to be better so he'll help. She was managing his emotions instead of him providing a service. That's power reversal. Rasputin told Alexandra that critics were jealous, that she couldn't trust anyone else. Classic isolation tactic. Cut the target off from alternative perspectives. Eventually, Alexandra defended Rasputin more aggressively than he defended himself. She'd taken ownership of protecting him. That's when manipulation is complete. Target defends manipulator from criticism without manipulator having to. Rasputin didn't hide his debauchery. He flaunted it. Orgies, drunkenness, blasphemy. All public. Why would someone trying to maintain power deliberately create scandals? Because scandals served two functions. Tested Alexandra's loyalty and made him more valuable as liability. Every scandal forced Alexandra to choose, believe Rasputin or believe his critics. Every time she chose him, she became more committed. Sunk cost fallacy. Defending him against previous scandals made defending new ones psychologically necessary. To admit he was corrupt now would mean admitting she was wrong before. She couldn't afford that. So each scandal actually strengthened his position, made her double down. As Rasputin became more scandalous, removing him became more dangerous for Alexandra. She defended him so publicly, his fall would be her fall. She was complicit through protection. He'd built himself into her reputation. Make yourself so toxic that removing you damages the person with power to remove you. That's genius manipulation architecture. Rasputin never held official position. No title, no formal authority. All power channeled through Alexandra. But he controlled ministerial appointments, military decisions, war strategy. Because Alexandra consulted him on everything. 3 degrees of separation. Rasputin to Alexandra to Nicholas to Russian government. This made him untouchable. Can't remove someone who officially has no position. Rasputin recommended loyal incompetents for positions of power. People who owed him their positions and would protect him. He built a network of dependent beneficiaries throughout government. People who needed him maintained in Alexandra's favor. This created systemic protection. Even people who saw through Rasputin had to support him because their positions depended on his influence. His recommended appointments were deliberately incompetent. Ministers who made disasters that made the war worse. Why? Because disaster made Alexandra more anxious, more desperate, more dependent on Rasputin for comfort and guidance. He was creating the problems that made him necessary. Perfect manipulation loop. The worse Russia did, the more Alexandra needed him. The more she needed him, the more power he had. Self-reinforcing system that accelerated toward collapse. Rasputin's greatest manipulation wasn't controlling Alexandra. It was making himself more valuable dead than alive. When he was finally assassinated, Alexandra became more devoted to his memory than she'd been to his living presence. He'd predicted his own death. Left letters warning that if nobles killed him, the Romanovs would fall within 2 years. Prophecy or prediction? Didn't matter. It came true, and it made him legendary. He framed his eventual death as martyrdom. Holy man killed by corrupt nobles who couldn't understand his divine mission. This made his death validate everything he'd claimed. Dead Rasputin became more powerful than living Rasputin. Because dead, he couldn't be contradicted, couldn't fail, couldn't disappoint. Alexandra mourned him as saint, built shrine, visited his grave, let his predictions guide decisions from beyond death. He'd achieved perfect manipulation, influence that survived his physical removal. Even today, Rasputin's manipulation persists. We debate whether he was mystic or charlatan, holy or evil. That's the debate he designed. Make people argue whether you're real deal or fake instead of seeing that the distinction doesn't matter. His techniques worked regardless of authenticity. That's the lesson. Manipulation doesn't require being special. It requires strategic positioning, dependency creation, and architectural thinking. Every technique Rasputin used operates today. Different context, same psychology. Target the desperate. Find people with unsolvable problems and position as solution. Intermittent reinforcement. Don't always deliver. Make success unpredictable. Manufactured mystique. Never explain how you do what you do. Love bombing and withdrawal. Create dependency through alternating attention and absence. Cultivate scandal. Make yourself liability that protector is complicit in defending. Proxy power. Operate through others. Never hold official position. Martyrdom architecture. Frame your eventual removal as validating your importance. These techniques are operating around you right now. In relationships, workplaces, politics. Someone who's clearly destructive but untouchable? Check for desperation-based dependency and protector. Someone who sometimes helps and sometimes disappears? Intermittent reinforcement creating addiction. Someone who can't explain what they do but insists it's essential? Mystique maintenance. Someone whose scandals somehow strengthen their position? Strategic scandal binding protector through complicity. Recognition is defense. Once you see the pattern, you can't be caught in it. If someone's making you desperate, check if they're also the solution provider. If someone's inconsistent but you keep coming back, check for intermittent reinforcement. If someone won't explain their methods, check if mystique serves them. If someone's scandals make you defend them harder, check if you're now complicit. These vulnerabilities haven't changed in 100 years, won't change in next 100. The only defense is recognition. See the pattern, name it, refuse to engage. A barely literate peasant destroyed an empire with psychology, not force. Strategic helplessness that created irreversible dependency. 7 techniques: target desperation, intermittent reinforcement, manufactured mystique, love bombing and withdrawal, strategic scandal, proxy power, martyrdom architecture. These aren't historical curiosities. They're operating around you right now, in someone you know, in systems you participate in relationships you can't explain why you can't leave. Rasputin's manipulation playbook works because it exploits universal human vulnerabilities, our desperation for solutions, our addiction to unpredictable rewards, our need to justify past decisions. The technique that destroyed the Russian Empire is the same technique keeping someone in your life who shouldn't be there. Same architecture, same psychology, same outcome if left unchecked. Recognition is defense. Now you can see it. Question is, what will you do about it?